Howdy, friends. It's been kind of a while. I probably should have looked at when I posted my last video. I don't recall, but I know I was still in Vietnam. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. This is an update slash I kind of wanted to do a summary of my experience recently, and we'll get to that when I do my update. So, I'm no longer in Vietnam. We did our visa run, and it was always intended to be a visa run to Thailand. We had signed up to do a Vipassana 10-day course, and we were not exactly sure if we were going to do it or not, but we ended up doing it. And yeah, we had fun in Bangkok. We spent 2 days in Bangkok. And then, yeah, kind of just generally concluded that Vietnam is not really for us. It's sort of lacking in some things that I feel I would really want in a place that I want to live. For instance, one of the most prominent things is a lack of public transportation. That piece was really hard for me. I don't love driving. I don't mind doing it as a necessity kind of thing. I drive a lot in the US, but you know, the US is so spread out, it's sort of necessary depending where you live. And I generally prefer to drive over fly when I am doing domestic travel in the US. So yeah, I didn't love that. And when we came to Bangkok, the public transportation was amazing. It is air conditioned. And it reminded me a lot of DC's public transportation, where you pay by distance, by stop that you're going to, and it sort of goes out in a spider web. And they do have buses, so it's definitely more efficient if you're going somewhere along the route. So it does have its drawbacks. Obviously, those types of systems tend to. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that it can the city can spread out, you know, infinitely radiating out from the coast. So similar, again, to DC, there's not a lot of restriction in terms of where it can spread to besides when it hits a body of water. So yeah, Bangkok was super fun. I didn't spend enough time there to really give a strong assessment of, you know, whether it's good or not, but I enjoyed my time there. I appreciated that there's a lot of air-conditioned spaces to go into, and that because I guess it's not a subway system, but the transit system is overground, it creates areas where you can walk that are shaded. So, and a lot of tall buildings that create shade. Even though it was very hot, it didn't feel overwhelming. So that was super cool. But anyway, 3 minutes in, onto my summary. I wanted to do this while it was fresh in my mind, because I would really like to reflect back on this later. Also, I saw that in my time away that I gained 2 subscribers, and probably nobody on this earth would ever be excited about 2 subscribers, but I am so happy that you're here. And honestly, every single subscriber feels like such an exciting win for me. I don't know. I just can't believe that people are interested enough to, I mean, I can believe it, right? But I wouldn't be here. But it just, I guess it's remarkable to me that you are interested enough in knowing where things go with me, and being a part of this journey with me to hit the subscribe button. So I appreciate you so much. And this is a good time to remind you, like and subscribe if that's something that feels good for you. Okay, so I want to talk about my experience with Vipassana. My first course was extremely difficult. I did it in the United States at 29 Palms. It was primarily new students, so first time goers, and maybe 5 but less than 10 old students. And there weren't a ton of people. I think it was 25 women. It was about that. And yeah, there was just like a lot of deep emotional stuff coming up. It certainly didn't help that me and my ex-boyfriend boyfriend, now friend, who I'm traveling with. And I got into, you know, an argument beforehand because that really kind of, in some ways, I want to say poisons you, but thinking from the lens of Dhamma and Vipassana, it just adds challenges to the soup, I guess, of tackling equanimity. But yeah, there was a lot of crying. It was really difficult for me. I was really just trying to wrap my head around what it meant. And because the reason that I went is because Vipassana is very important to that person, my friend / ex. And I didn't yet have my own reasons to go. And at the end, I sort of felt like, yeah, I'm so glad I did that because I love challenging myself, but I'm not sure it's for me. I was like, I'm not sure I want to do that again. And then sometimes in life, the beauty of time is that pain subsides. Sometimes it does not help us, certainly, but in this case, I was like, yeah, I'll sign up for another 10-day course. And I certainly remembered that there were times that were very unpleasant, but it had subsided enough that I no longer felt the pain. And so when I got there, the first 2 days, easy breezy. I was in a rhythm, but I was cheating myself. I was, when we were doing the self-directed meditation portions. If you don't know about the Vipassana schedule, you can probably look it up online, but I'll give you a general rundown. There are several sessions of self-directed meditation, and the idea is that you are disciplined and that you do sit all of these times and try to. And then there are kind of mandatory group sits. And then there's, of course, the discourse where you watch the videos of Goenka, the teacher. He died, I think, in the 90s or 2000s. Actually, maybe, don't quote me on that. I have no idea. He might have even died in 2015, honestly. But anyway, they decided they wanted to preserve the purity of how the technique is taught so that it doesn't get manipulated, especially by, say, people teaching it maybe through the lens of their religion, etc. So basically, there is a portion where they call the discourse, and that's where you watch Goenka, who is the teacher, speak about that day, the technique, and he'll tell stories, and yeah, it's just nice. It's a refreshing way to break up the evening. So you wake up at 4, they have a bell, you start meditating at 4:30, and it's self-directed until 6:30. There is chanting from 6 to 6:30, and you continue to do the method that they teach through the chanting. I think of it like meditation cheerleading, because when he tells you and he translates, it's really kind of, there are these sweet chants that are well wishes and loving kindness messages. So at 6:30 you eat, and then you take a break from 6:30 to 8, and then 8 to 9 is your first group sit of the day for 1 hour. So you're required to be there, you're required to be in the hall. Even if you wiggle around, do whatever, you just have to be in the hall. And then you take a little mini break. Unless you're a more advanced student, then you just continue sitting. And then from 9:15 to 11 is self-directed sit. At 11, you take lunch, and then you get a break until 1 p.m. And then at 1 p.m. it's a self-directed sit until 2:15, where you take a break. And then at 2:30 to 3, you do another group sit. And then, 2:30 to 3:30 is another group sit. And then from another 15-minute break. And then from 3:45 to 5, you do another self-directed sit, and then you do tea time. So I'm just gonna lay out the foundation there and not do the rest of it, because there's another group sit and then discourse and another sit after discourse. So the program is essentially 4:30 to 9 p.m. Okay, so during the self-directed sits, what I was doing was, when my legs would start to feel a lot of pain in my hips, it would typically be 45 minutes in. So I would feel the pain. I would finally realize / decide that I couldn't take it any longer. And I would open my eyes, I'd look at my watch, and I'd go, well, it's time for a break. So I would get up and I'd take a break. You know, I'd go pee, I'd walk around, because at home, you only do 2 1-hour sits a day. So to me, I thought, well, if I sit for 1 hour, that is a great success. I love that for me here. And so that's what I was doing. But then things started slowly to feel hard. And I don't know exactly when it set in. And I think day 3 was a little more difficult, and then day 4 was so difficult. Day 4 is when they transitioned from teaching the Anapana technique the first 3 days to transitioning to teaching you the Vipassana technique. And I was in Thailand doing this. So what they do is they do the English, which is the original Goenka talking, and then they have the Thai translation. And so it kind of eats into your time to meditate without someone talking at you, which is okay from the lens of equanimity. You're really not supposed to mind. You're kind of just supposed to do your thing. But with the stage that I'm at, I found it a bit disruptive, and I was letting it get me really agitated. So that really didn't help, and I was dreading sitting for 2 hours to learn the Vipassana technique again, or relearn, whichever it is. And I was just really experiencing a lot of resistance within me. So I think I kind of, had one of those like hard talks with myself. I sort of joke that Vipassana is spiritual reparenting. And what I decided was, okay, I need a challenge for this time, because my first course, I was all over the place. I was constantly taking breaks, taking naps, just doing all types of stuff. And I was like, well, that's not the point in this, right? And I was thinking, okay, well, what's sustainable for me? What can push me to the edge and push me further and expand my sphere of equanimity? And I have a lot of things around sleep, so I knew waking up at 4 was not the answer for me this course. And so I made the choice to sleep in until 6 a.m., get ready, have breakfast, but I committed to sitting every single meditation. And my rule for myself for the self-directed meditations became that, because I was creating this habit of automatically opening my eyes when I had decided that I needed to shift. And so my rule became, you have to keep your eyes closed even if you change position. And so that kept me there. And for the first time, I meditated for 1 hour and 45 minutes. That's the first time I'd ever done that. And as a consequence of that, I started being able to challenge and sit with and begin to look at and understand the pain that was coming up for me in my hips. And I mean, my practice just took off from there. And I talked to a guy later who actually said he also does this. When I start to feel absolute unbearable pain, before that actually, when it's really kind of starting to come in, which is usually around the 45-minute mark, I know they say to sit up straight and correct yourself if you find yourself slouching, but for me, what I noticed is that the slouching sort of became this unconscious reaction. And he tells you, don't let yourself react. But he also talks about the unconscious and how your body, unconscious, but it's still kind of conscious, right, reacts to things. And so I use those little things without necessarily changing them, because I was observing them as an indicator of what was going on or about to come with my body. And when I was in a ton of pain, I looked to see what tiny micro adjustments I could make to keep myself there, but not to the point where I had to change my posture, so that I could continue to sit with it. And when I did that, it allowed me to get deep. A lot of the pain that I examined was in my hip. And I was able to go in and get past those gross sensations that are typically all you can feel, and go in, and experience finer and finer reactions. And at some point I had this crazy experience where I just felt it completely dissolve away. Like there was this knot that just suddenly was like, oh God, you discovered me, and snaked away. It was it was a really crazy experience. And I just had a lot of really incredible realizations. It was so weird because I was having so many incredible inspirational ideas, and it reminded me of this time that I took Sudafed for a clogged ear. And I don't recall, but Sudafed reminds me, I don't know if it's an amphetamine. Anyway, I have the craziest ideas on Sudafed. I felt like a genius, but then when it wears off, you're like, oh, well, that's gone. But this is just been long lasting. Like, I don't know. I feel like I've been touched by the Buddhas of yore. I don't know. Anyway, it was a really incredible experience. And one other thing of note is that they didn't have air conditioning, which at first I was really terrified about, but then I kind of accepted it as a lesson in equanimity. And the whole thing made me just realize how much of my misery around certain types of creature comforts and discomfort is up here. I won't get into that, but anyway, I'm tempted, but I won't get into it. And the food situation was so different from the US. They cultivated abundance so well, and it was just so beautiful. The food was amazing and beautiful and delicious. I could eat it every day for the rest of my life. And it made me realize that a lot of my relationship with that was so different. My first course, I was obsessed with lunch because I'm not a big sweets person, and breakfast is always the same thing, and it was sweet. And so it made me just like yearn for lunch. But here, the breakfast was so beautiful, and there was so much variety, and it was different every morning and exciting, that I found myself excited, at the idea of breakfast, but not obsessive. And I also found myself just being super in the moment with the experience of eating, and being so satisfied with it in that moment, that I didn't take it outside of that present experience. So that was really beautiful too. I also, side note, went crazy with the chilies, because they would have these chilies in kind of a soy sauce thing, and I went nuts with that. And I absolutely enjoyed sitting with the equanimity of absolutely just snotting and needing to blow my nose 8,000 times, and sitting with the idea that I could really be annoying people. So there you go. I feel like I really integrated a lot of equanimity into the experiences, both on the seat and off the seat of meditation. So that was my experience. I wanted to summarize it mainly for myself, but I would love to hear if anyone else had similar experiences, what your experience on your second course was like. Yeah, just anything you have to say on the subject of meditation, Vipassana, what number course, etc. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.